As part of Term 4 Media Studies, students travelled to Kintore to create a video diary about the life of a senior sergeant in Central Australia. The students got to meet several NT police officers and interview them.
This is the footage and photo from their excursion. This story is by Yirara College.
Arriving at the Air Wing hangar in the morning, we met our police pilot Reese and Senior Sergeant Michael Potts. We watched a short safety briefing before boarding the police plane. The flight took just over an hour, and Senior Sergeant Michael Potts showed us his aeroplane radar application, so we could see how far we've travelled and also what other planes were around us. We made a short stop in Warrakuna to drop off an officer. The airstrip was small and we listened to the officers explain the area.
We cover a pretty big area: Docker River, Jukala, Warrakuna and Wannon, so 4 communities. A lot of travel out here, a lot of driving. If you don't like driving, don't come out here because you're always driving. To drive to Alice Springs is about 8 hours.
The Western Australia border was only 70 kilometres away from us. We really liked the waiting area too. It was an old fitted out bus. Back on the plane we headed to our destination Kintore. We were picked up in a police escort and taken to the station. We met the other officers and interviewed them. Here's Connie's interview with Senior Sergeant Michael Potts explaining his role.
How long have you been in the role and what are the highlights?
Okay, I've been in the role now for just over 4 years. Probably the highlights is really just the challenges of managing the division. That's probably the main highlight. Just looking after the guys and just making sure that they maintain their own safety.
What are the challenges and why?
The challenges are quite significant. Ensuring that we maintain a good frontline response, that the community is kept safe, and that my members are also kept safe.
Why do you like to work remote and particularly in Aboriginal communities?
When you actually work in a remote community, you actually get to know people on a more one-to-one basis, which is something that you probably don't get an opportunity to do in a major centre.
Can you please share an example of a time when you're satisfied in your job and why?
It's quite satisfying when we have someone that's lost in a remote environment and they're probably at risk of perishing in a remote environment, and it's really satisfying when we find them and they're safe and well.
What would you like youth to know about police officers?
First and foremost, they're human beings. They're not just people in uniform. They do a job day to day. At the end of each day, they do take that uniform off and they go home. And just like you and all your friends, they have feelings and they do suffer from a lot of trauma every single day from the things that they see at work.
Thank you.
After interviewing Mr. Potts, Kintore's APLO or Aboriginal Police Liaison Officer, Charlie Michael, took us on a tour of the community. He pointed out special cultural spots and took us to the monument dedicated to the Christian pastors. We were lucky enough to visit the art centres too. Usually the artists don't allow photos, but they were happy to let us film for our project. The artists also love Yirara College. It was then my turn to interview APLO Charlie Michael, who prefers to be called Ringo. What does a Aboriginal liaison officer do?
Go to school for kids, talking to kids and the adults, That's my job.
How long have you been in the role and what are the highlights?
Yeah, working for my people and making community safe, help people, talking to people, especially young boys, young girls, and old people. Sometimes they couldn't understand. That's why I speak to communities and the language and for police.
Would you like other younger people to become ALO's officers?
Yes.
And thank you.
Thank you.
Ringo is a real funny guy. We filmed and took photos of Constable Joe Cooper and Ringo engaging with the local youth at the basketball courts. Some of the students were from our Yirara campus, which is really cool too. We realized that being a police officer has a lot to do with speaking with the community and not just arresting people. Another quick drive of the community took us back to the station. Rikisha interviewed Constable Joe Cooper about why he loves his job.
Because Aboriginal people are very similar to mine, the culture is very similar, and so the needs are pretty much the same as New Zealand. So that's why I enjoy it, because your people are very similar to ours. And I enjoy hanging out with the young people and even the older ones. I like having a laugh with them. It's good.
Would you encourage our youth to become police officers, and why?
I always do, because I grew up in a rough part of New Zealand in the north, where it's very, very dangerous and the crime's very high. So when I became a police officer and worked in my own community, the young people sort of saw me and the change in my life, and I used to talk to them and say to them, you know, you can help your family too. You can be an encouragement to your family. So you do well. Do well at school, and then study, and then you can serve the people too. And with the Aboriginal children, I do the same thing.
The day went super fast, and it was time to head back to the airstrip. All of the officers escorted us, and we got some really great photos too. And it was awesome to hang out with the anti-police for the day, and we see what they really do for work.